Welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and every episode we get into what has made our guests vulnerable and how they've learned how to own their awkward in order to live their best life. Stay tuned so you can hear every awkward moment in today's show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and today we have the amazing and very funny and talented Ashley Gutermuth. Ashley, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you on all the way from across the country. I know we met here in Tacoma when you lived here, but now you're in New Jersey. And why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself? I mean, you're a stand-up comedian. You got fun stuff going on. But I know that you got some exciting things you want to share with the world.
Yeah, I do stand-up comedy. That's something I have ongoing all the time. So if you go to my website, ashleygutermuth.com, or Instagram, I'm fairly active. I post all my shows there, and I'm just at Ash Gutermuth. Because believe it or not, there's another Ashley Gutermuth, and
Really?
she got the name first. Yeah.
I hate when that happens.
I feel like she probably gets weird messages like, can you be on this show? It's at 2 a.m. and you got, she's like, no, I'm an accountant. This is not
right.
me.
Do you have material planned? Do you have 20 minutes?
you got a solid 20. Please go to my website or sign up for my newsletter. That'd be great. And I post all my shows there or any of the stuff that I have going on. So, and if you are interested in watching somebody run every day until they die, it seems, and then pick up garbage. I pick up litter while I run, and I post pictures of the crazy litter that I find. So.
Yeah, which is, what was it yesterday? Or the other day, it was a bucket, like a beach bucket. And
a beach bucket, a pail.
Yeah, a pail. And that's what's amazing is the things that are litter are sometimes usable type stuff. Yeah. It's amazing what you see. And you're on, we're not talking like when you say you run every day, Ashley runs every day. What day are you on now?
Oh, let's look. It's over 6 years. I have a streak counter.
Because I know a little while back you hit 2,000, didn't you?
Yeah, it's 2,242 days.
Wow. Of running every day.
Every day. I run at least a mile a day, but now I run 4 miles a day. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And we have that in common. I ran 2 miles this week. So
that's great.
I'm trying to get back to where I do it at least 3 or 4 times a week, and I got one day in this week, but it's only Wednesday. It's only Tuesday, so I still have. I guess it's not too bad.
I find with running, because for the first 3 years of my run streak, which is you have to run at least a mile a day every day for a year, and then you can be in this club called runeveryday.com.
Okay.
And what I found is just saying 1 mile is. And being okay with that is much easier to deal with than saying, I'm going to run a 5K 2 times a week. And then you're just dreading it. But, 1 mile is, anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes, and then you're done. Mm-hmm. And you do that, and you will see it gains really quickly. It was pretty amazing how much faster I got just by doing 1 mile a day.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good point, because I have seen that similar concept with so many different things where they say, small steps or small things more often are going to get you so much further than, waiting to make a big payment on your debt or waiting to, have this big splash. It's like, no, if you can just do a little bit, it doesn't have to be the big thing all the time. So,
yeah. And, that leads into the trash. So I'll often pick up, I run with a backpack. Mm-hmm. This all sounds perfectly normal, doesn't it? I run with a backpack and I will pick up, I'll find a lot of cardboard boxes. But they're often too big for me to run with as it is. So I have to piece by piece, just a little bit every day. And that sort of goes with what you're saying, just a little bit. And then eventually I see that the box is gone and it's been recycled.
So you just take a piece of the box away and that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, because you can't really run with the backpack and the box. And then
right. Yeah, it gets sometimes. Plus, it's windy. I end up being blown away.
Yeah, and you probably have to be okay with running past trash, like knowing that you are not going to pick up every piece of trash in the mile.
And that is hard. The guilt, Andy, that comes from that. Because sometimes, if I were to pick up every piece of trash, I wouldn't make it the whole 4 miles. I'd be running for 8 hours a day.
Right. And you wouldn't be running. You'd Be
it just
scrolling.
stop, bend over. Yeah, it's a lot of
Yeah.
bending. So you do have to run past trash. And I'll keep like mental notes of like, oh, okay, I'll run back and pick that up because there was some, that might get in somebody's car or try to pick up like nails or things like that.
Yeah.
Um, but
Oh, that makes
it's
sense.
everywhere.
That's cool. So, Ashley, I gotta know, I ask everybody in the audience is waiting to hear, what is your awkward that you have had to own?
Well, I'd say my awkward that I've had to own ties perfectly into what we are talking about, and that is obsessiveness.
Oh, okay.
So, it's all well and good to say this person runs every day for a mile a day. And you're like, oh, wow, that's pretty neat. I wish I ran that much. And then you go, oh, every day. And you haven't stopped. When are you going to stop? When, and now you've added on this picking up trash thing. So, and I've done that for over a year. So that's another streak. So when are you going to quit that? Uh, so my whole life I've been I've always been obsessed with things. I've been
Hmm,
obsessed with comedy from when I was really young, really like
okay.
3.
Wow.
Uh, Grew up with that. I was obsessed with the Beatles, and I was not born in the 50s. It,
Hmm.
it didn't add up. Just completely obsessed. With just knowing as many stats about the Beatles as I could, and about British comedy, obsessed with that. Still am
Hmm.
obsessed with that, and anything to do with streaks. So, in my mind, I can't really do anything well unless I do it every day. And in order to
Okay.
do it every day, I have to really pare down the things that I'm interested in.
Hmm.
So I know that every day I have to run. And as I said, it started out as 1 mile. Now it's 4 miles. Now, the reason why it increased is because I like to continuously challenge myself for no reason.
Hmm.
No one's asking me to do it.
Right.
It's, I'm constantly trying to one up myself. And it's not like I don't think it's good for anybody else to take that on. But for example, I'll be running and I'll think to myself, there's a hill. I could go around the hill and that'll be much easier. And as soon as I think go around the hill, I have to go up the hill. Like I
Uh-huh.
have to do the harder thing.
Hmm.
And that's just been my life. I like to challenge my brain to grow in almost every area, which on the flip side of that means I do not relax. I do not sleep.
Yeah.
Uh, it's not great, but it's,
Not
gives me
necessarily
something to
the
talk
the
about.
most balanced lifestyle, right?
Right. Yeah. There is no balance in
So,
my life at all.
so was there a point where you had to admit that you're obsessive? I know you talked about having to pare down and be interested in less things. So that's you've got to probably hold back from some temptations to get interested in something, knowing that you will want to take it very far. But was there a point where you realized this was a trait that you had?
It not I didn't have like it's mostly other people, because I just plod along and just keep going.
Hmm.
And then other people will be like, you're obsessive about this. Now on the I grew up, a lot of my family are hoarders. They
Hmm.
really like to have a lot of stuff. And because of that, I went in the opposite direction. So I am sort of also obsessive about having nothing. Like my dream is to live in a, a concrete room that's just
Mm.
empty. There's nothing to clean, uh,
Just like
because
like a monk cell.
amongst cell. So I'm just obsessive about. I get obsessive about cleaning,
Hmm.
and any. I have. I buy reconditioned Roombas on eBay. I have 5
Okay.
baby Roombas that I
Oh,
have fixed
wow.
up and that run around my house. And I also have several other. I have a backpack vacuum like you might see in a hotel.
Hmm.
And you. So I. It's not. But that's an obsessiveness. I because I grew up not necessarily in my own household, like mess, but like just seeing tons of stuff. And I just don't, I'm so like afraid that I will sneak into that sort of
Yeah,
behavior.
I have some hoarding in my family, and there was a point where I was cleaning out the garage at a house I used to live in back when I was married, and I had taken everything from the side of the garage into the center as I was rearranging the shelves around the room, but I had this big mess, and I'd kind of piled myself into the corner. And my wife at the time said, "Oh, dinner's ready." So I got ready to come in the house, and I had to get over the junk, and I did like a hop, and I was like, Oh no, I just did a hoarder hop and it
I just
came naturally, like it was in my blood. And so I went inside
hoarder
and
hop.
yeah. And it was instinctive. So it freaked me out. So I went back out to the garage that night, put everything away. It was perfectly pristine. And whatever didn't fit into the shelves went
Yeah.
out the door. And I was just like, I can't have that become me.
Can't live like
So I
this
can relate.
yet. Yeah. So I think that is probably, there's some of that and just, but it's definitely other people that are, especially when it comes to like household stuff, where it's just like, well, what do you mean you don't want to have, like, I don't have a microwave. I
Hmm.
don't have, a lot of people think that you need a microwave. I'm kind of offended by the idea of a microwave. I'm just like, I have an oven, I have other
Right.
things that I can use. And I just don't want the extra thing.
Hmm.
And,
Understandable.
but like there's other people that live in my house. So my husband's just like, well, I'd like a microwave.
I would like a microwave
I
sometimes.
was, I would, so, I'd like to be a normal person. I accept that you don't want to be, but
Just
so
he needs a separate room of things. Like when I microwave, I go into my room with my things.
we do kind of have that little bit of a situation because I love paring down stuff. I love giving things
Hmm.
away. If I read a book, I like to pass it on and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But yeah, it is mostly other people that are like, you are. I used to think I was super laid back, and like
Hmm.
recently, like I was just like I'm a laid back, open minded person, and then people were like, yeah, you're open minded, but you are really really uptight, and like, am I?
But not in a projecting it on other people kind of way. I
Yeah,
don't think.
no, no, I don't
More
really
about your
mind what.
own uptight about your own stuff.
Yeah, I don't mind what other people do, and it's I'm not like judgmental in that way. People,
Hmm.
go and do whatever the heck you want. But when it comes to me, I'm just yeah, I am uptight and controlling
Mm.
to to a degree that it just you want I want things to be how I want them to be,
Hmm.
and if they're not, then God knows what happens.
Yeah. Just that internal thing is going to be going on.
Yeah, it's just like it all builds up.
Yeah. So being obsessive, have you found things that you've had to give up that you might have wanted to pursue? I know you said you have to keep your things limited and we see you in running and picking up the trash and with comedy, but were there things where you're like, I'd really like to get into that, but I can't dedicate doing that every day?
Um, I've had some things drop off that I used to do every day. So I play guitar
Mm.
and still play guitar regularly, but I'm not doing it every day, and that irritates me. And I feel like I could fit that in, even if it was like 10 minutes, just to keep my finger muscles up. Um,
And
so I'm,
can you
I'm
play
working on that.
guitar while you run and pick up trash? Like that's a lot to
I could
I should not have put
try.
that in.
That's it's an idea. Yeah, it's funny. As soon as my brain's like, you can't do it. It's like, oh, you can't. I can buy a ukulele is probably realistic.
Right?
So I want to do more of that. But other things, I derive a lot of comfort from having that, which is again, I'm going to preempt this, not healthy, from having a level of control where I'm controlling my surroundings, and
Hmm.
I can do that with streaks. And what are people are like, oh my god, I could never do that, and I'm like, well, you could. You just got to be a little bananas.
Right. Well, and I think for people to understand the level of your dedication to your streak, you were in a car wreck in the middle of your streak
Mm-hmm.
and still didn't miss your running, correct?
I did. Yeah, I got in a really nasty car accident. I ended up needing a hearing aid. I'm like partially deaf in one ear from
Mm.
that car accident.
Wow.
Traumatic brain injury, physical therapy for ages, all kinds of back problems. And but I went to the hospital right away, and they said you have to keep moving because tomorrow you are going to be in pain. They were
Mm.
like, you need all the Motrin in the world. And so they said keep going, and I had to slow way down, and that's what led
Oh,
to picking
sure.
up trash, because I couldn't bounce my brain anymore because it was
Mm.
already so concussed. And so I would pick up trash as I went along, and then it just led to, I did it once, so now I have to do it until I die.
Right.
uh, and go from there. It's And that's been really great. I try to turn something negative like that into something
Mhm.
positive because that was such a crazy situation that happened. But what can you do? You can't predict everything.
Right, and that's I think all too often we have this plan for life where we think, "Okay, now I have my life this way," and then something out of our control happens to change it, whether it's financially or a natural disaster or something like this, where now your plan is altered, and so you might have been planning to run 3 miles that day or 4 miles or whatever, now you're like, "I can't even run, I have to slow way down,"
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that it has to end a good thing. It would just, "Okay, well, now how do I make this into something different?"
Mhm. Yeah.
So
That's what I like about comedy, comedy, any type of writing. If something bad happens to you and you're somebody that doesn't have that creative outlet, then it's just something bad that happened. If
yeah.
something bad happens to me, I can immediately start writing about how I'm going to get that person back, in some sort of joke
Right.
form.
Yes, I've actually done that where some of my best writing or best jokes have come from, "I can't believe this situation, I've got to get this out." And when I the first time actually did it, I didn't even realize I was doing that. I was just kind of venting to a friend, and then it became a joke, and I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome, I need to do that."
Yeah.
And that's a good point because it doesn't have to necessarily be comedy, whatever that creative outlet is, if you're a
Hmm.
musician and you're just putting that passion into that, a good my best friend, she's runs all the time. She runs pretty much every day. She's always doing something. But I remember there was a point where something just really made her mad, and I said, "Well, I think that angry running burns double the calories because
It does.
it's like you get it over faster, and you're like, wow, I was going faster than I thought, and I went further than I expected." But it is you're
Yeah.
putting that emotion into it.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people say that they're running. They run to train to run away from bears. Like it's like the funny thing. Oh, like I'm
Oh,
trying to run faster so I can run away from bears. But when I was in Washington, I actually was running and saw a bear.
oh.
And I can tell you what I did. This idiot right here took out her phone, didn't even think, it was just like, a bear, look how cute. And then I'm like, I need to get out of here. What am I doing? And it
Right.
ran off, and bears are faster than you might think. So it was just
Mhm.
like you don't realize how stupid you're going to be until you're in the moment. But my
Right.
goodness. Come on, Ashley.
I know we always would like to think, I would never do that, or if I was in this situation, it's like, it's just like the people that go too far behind the fence by the
Yeah.
waterfall. It's just and then every once in a while I find myself kinda leaning over and I was like, maybe I'm leaning a little too far. I'm gonna be that guy,"
This
Just
is
like
how it happens. Yep.
yeah. It's like, "Oh, they didn't, like, purposely mean to do that. They just wanted a better picture."
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Oh my gosh. So, so how do you feel that you use being obsessive, uh, to your advantage? I know you said that you never sleep, you never wake, but or you're always going. How can you turn that into something that is just over the top amazing?
Well, it means I so comedy wise, which is, my main love,
Mhm.
I and just have been obsessed with, like I was saying, forever. And in all forms. I write all the time. I write every day, and then I perform every afternoon in some capacity, and then hopefully there's another show in the evening. And so it's something that I do for several hours every day and just pound it out, try to make it better. The more obsessed I can be with a joke or with, um, a set to try to refine it down as best as I can. I feel like that helps me to do better. For my ultimate goal was to make audiences laugh, right?
Mhm.
And to be able to connect with them. So, and I feel like putting all that work in and being obsessive about that work is really beneficial. I mean, for me, there's so many people, in even in Tacoma that are so talented. It comes down to there's some super funny people that you're just like, oh my goodness, how do I compete with this? Well, you just got to
Mhm.
work really hard.
Yeah. And then I think you probably see super talented people in any walk of life who don't put in that dedication, and then that
Mhm.
becomes a difference on how far they
Yeah.
go. It's
Yeah,
like,
there's a comedian, his name is Gary Delaney, and he's a British comedian. He does one-liners,
"Mm,
and he'll often give like he'll write about things that have helped him, and it just says you got to do at least 4 performances a week. Anything less than that, and your skills are going to go down. Any more than that, and they will increase. And then you have to write every day, and you have to work harder than everybody else. And so I've tried to do that as much as I can,
Same.
you know,
Taking the cues.
taking the cues.
Well, and that is the thing. I was listening to a podcast a while back, and one of the gal was saying, if you haven't achieved your goals, it's because you haven't taken enough massive action. And you might think that you've done enough stuff, and you might be saying, well, I did this, I did that. How come this hasn't happened yet? But that doesn't mean that you stop. You just got to keep going. And at some
Mm-hmm.
point, when you've taken enough action, it'll come together. And I'm guilty of that. I have things where I look at and think, oh, this didn't come together. That didn't happen. And then I look back and I think, well, how much did I really follow up on it? Where did I stop dropping the ball? Or, even if I've been asking somebody to come on my show or do something, and they say they're going to and they don't, even if it's a year later, it's not too late to reach back out and say, hey, I just want to resurrect this conversation, because I think that most of the things where I haven't had successes that I've wanted to, when I look back, the reason that they haven't come together, as much as I want to blame somebody else or a situation, it's because I didn't follow up on it. And
Yeah.
so now
Yeah. That
I was
being
just say
able
now I
to
keep it like
say
right
that.
in
Yeah.
front of me. Yeah.
Yeah, it always. Oh, there's some great books by Stephen Pressfield. He wrote The War of Art, if you've heard of that. Not The Art of War. A lot of people
Right.
get confused, but it's The War of Art, and it just talks about how we set up our own little roadblocks, our own resistance to writing or to accomplishing anything every day. And it's really important to realize that you are your own boss. On
Hmm.
your wall it should be manager on duty, Andy Vargo. And if you don't get you right back to that guy to get him on your podcast, Mr. Vargo is going to be mad.
Right. Yeah.
And so just having that accountability, which is it's hard when you don't have a direct you know hierarchy of management right in front of you. You can
Right.
just kind of go sit on the couch. But um I've seen the benefits, at least from doing as much as I can.
Hmm.
I apply for a lot of stuff. It doesn't all stick, but sometimes really cool stuff happens, like the Tonight Show.
Yeah. That
They'll
was
put me on a
awesome.
clip. That was pretty neat. And so stuff like that, just apply for everything. Don't put your whole like emotional being into it. Send it off, move on to the
Hmm.
next thing, and just keep working.
Yeah, and that's the thing is it's a numbers game, right? The more you're putting out there, the more you're doing, little bits are gonna stick here and there, and pretty soon you look back at everything you've done, and that's one thing too, I think that is important to do, is to stop and look back every once in a while, or keep a running list of what you've accomplished, what shows you've been on, so that when you're beating yourself up and saying, "Gosh, I haven't done what I wanted to do in 2021." Well, we're just at the middle of March, and if you look back over the last 2.5 months, what have you already gotten done? And sometimes like, oh wow, I forgot I did this in January, or I did this in February, or I took these steps, even if it didn't come together. At least these are the actions I took,
Yeah,
so that you can kind of feel a little more empowered.
definitely. Yeah, so you feel like you're accomplishing something. You don't feel like you're constantly striving for no reason.
Right.
Yeah.
So if someone feels like they are a bit obsessive, um, what kind of advice would you give them on how to hone that, or whether or not they should embrace it, or push it away, or what?
I don't know. I think people should embrace it as long as it's not hurting anybody or
Hmm.
yourself. I mean, a lot of times people will say, "Well, what about your knees?" And I'm
Oh,
like, "Well, they're still here, So far so good." Um and then I used to have comedy streaks too, where I would try to get as many shows every day for as long as possible. I would
mhm.
usually end up getting a cold
Oh,
after about a month and a half, just sharing the mic.
yeah.
Um, and then I would have to take a break for a few days so I didn't get anyone else sick. But yeah, try to pick things. If you're going to be, I love people that are obsessive and interested in things. Anybody that,
Hmm.
I don't care what it is. You could be interested in map making, the origins of the pencil. And if you're super into it, I'm going to be into it because you're super into it. Doesn't
Right.
matter what it is. And so I just love that, people that have, because there's a lot of people that don't have any interests.
Hmm.
They just kind of like, float.
Yeah,
that's depressing.
and I think it's really neat when you find someone who's passionate about something. It does that. It gets you on board because you think, I didn't know that that's where the pencil came from, or that there were this
Hmm.
many varieties, or who knew, like all these things that you don't know. And we need somebody that's interested in everything, right? Because we need
Yeah.
somebody who's kind of the champion for that cause, no matter what it is. And so when we encounter those people, I think it's really important to have an appreciation. And I that's one thing that I also really appreciate when I meet somebody. I love being able to learn about something that I never would have opened a book and looked into, or, unless
Yeah.
I accidentally stumbled upon it. It's like, oh, I wouldn't have picked up that book at the library, but hearing you talk about it, that's why I love going to different museums, because all of a sudden you're just like, I didn't know this was a big thing around here.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it is. So,
Yeah, it's so interesting, to see different perspectives. And then it's always, yeah, you might go to a museum and you'll see one side of something, and then you look into it later and you see a totally different side. And because
yeah,
every situation has, you know, it's they're so vast. It's like you can't see it all at once. You got to pick it up and look at the different angles. And I love that, being able to see all the different interesting things. And it just, anybody that, to me, if you're obsessive about anything, as long as it's not hurting people or anything like that,
right.
but that I'm on board. You want to have uh only like American Girl dolls from 1962. I don't even know if they made them then.
Right. That specific year. Yeah. Well, and that
uh
is the thing, is you figure out when you take that obsession or that passion and you figure out, okay, I'm really interested in this. I have all this information. And how do you share that and use it with the world, so that it can be for the good? And whether
yeah,
it's raising awareness or finding a cure for something, or, cleaning up trash, whatever it is, you're making the world better by putting your heart into it.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Well, we're getting down to the last couple minutes here, and I like to ask everybody what advice they would give people for how they can own their awkward.
How can you own it? Well, you have to accept that you are who you are, and to a certain point, you can change that. If there's things about you that you want to be stronger in areas, you absolutely can. The only thing that's holding you back is you.
Hmm.
So uh if there's something more that you want to, if you want to embrace your obsessions more, but like somebody's just like, hey, I don't think, that's lame, or that's not cool, or why are you into that, you don't have to talk to that person.
Hmm.
uh
Mhm.
you
Yeah,
know
that's a good
uh
point. You don't have to keep having that conversation.
you don't have to. You can just say, okay, well, whatever you want to do. So you own it by just accepting what it is you like, and you got to find that by trying things and failing at them, and trying new things all the time, and so that you can get the most out of the world and be as enriched as possible. And then just put it out there and be okay with it. Not everybody's going to like it, but the thing is, not everybody likes themselves. So they project how they feel onto you. There's plenty of people that have been critical of things that I've done, but it's purely because of their own hangups. I've had people complain about me picking up garbage.
Hmm.
Like,
Wow.
if you're at that point, like, that really made me realize something, where like people will complain about everything.
Right.
Like, this has nothing to do with you. We're not even in the same part of the country. I am literally just picking up litter and recycling it, and you found a problem with it. Like,
Right. Yeah,
so
really?
you're just not going to make everybody happy. And I know people have heard that a million times, but you're not going to make anybody happy,
Mhm.
really. They have to make themselves happy, and you will be much easier and more fun to be around if you embrace the things that you like.
I love that, and a couple things that you mentioned that I really wanna drive home was that, first you said to try a lot of things and fail, and that's okay. We don't Everything doesn't have to be a success, and that's part of the process.
Hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, and then
Definitely.
the other thing that you mentioned was how people project their own unhappiness on you, and that I think that's important to realize, that just like the people who don't like you picking up trash, you're like, no one would argue that it's a good thing. I didn't think anybody would argue that it's a good thing to
You
pick up
wouldn't-
trash. Like, who knew?
Who knew? Everybody got mad at everything. You know, you may have had this where if you say you're going to embark upon some sort of new journey in your life that is totally different from, say, your family or your life circumstance the way it was.
Hmm.
And because you're changing, it makes the people that have always known you before really nervous. And
Yeah.
they start to put that out there. So, you know, I've had family members be like, they would, it would be really over the top. We're so like, they'd be like, we're embarrassed of what of
You're
your
not the
choices.
Ashley that we knew.
Yeah. Why would you do that? And the funny thing is, and I've seen this several times where I will just go and do whatever it is. And then a couple of years later, it will be, oh, we're so proud of you. You go and you get out there and you're a go-getter. And you're like, no, I remember.
This is not how the conversation started.
I remember. So, you know, people, once they see that it works, people are so afraid of change.
Yeah,
And
they are.
there's why, you know, we all end up in the same place. So,
Hmm. And change is always going to be happening. I think there's a couple things at play. One is that people are afraid that you're going to change and leave them behind
mm,
and not be there in the same way. You know, it's like, oh, now you're going to have trash cleanup friends that you're not going to do our thing on Saturday
yeah.
because you're going to be with your trash cleanup friends or whatever that is. And the other thing is people are afraid that as you change, then they have to reflect on why they aren't changing. And
True.
they might not, and it's kind of like that unhappiness that they're projecting on you. It's, oh, well, I actually want to make changes, but I'm not secure enough or don't feel like I'm in the position to do it. And so now I'm mad at you for making changes happen in your life, even if it's a subtle change that has nothing to do with the change that I want to make. But
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But everybody can do it. And I believe in all of you. Accomplish your dreams.
awesome. That's a great thing to leave in our minds. So you can do it. And Ashley, I appreciate you being out there, picking up the trash and being here with us today. It's been an amazing conversation. I could go on, but that would be obsessive. And you have a busy day of writing and comedy.
I'll meet you here again tomorrow, same time.
Right. Oh, we're doing this every day now. I forgot. It's going to be a podcast streak of like the same show over, like the Groundhog Day.
Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. And everybody out there, tune in next week and be sure to follow Ashley, like her stuff, share it, pick up a trash while you're out there and start some sort of streak of your own. And of course, remember to own your awkward. Thank you so much for listening in for today's show. Be sure to visit awkwardcareer.com to continue your journey. And of course, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends so they can find their awkward side and learn how to own it.